I feel like a kid in a candy store. One Sony State of Play that I didn't even know was happening until the day of, not only had a brand new gameplay trailer for Secret of the Mimic, but a brand new gameplay trailer for Sonic Racing Crossworlds, the game that was teased last December. Obviously, I have to do a whole video on this, because not only do we have this great trailer, but we have 7 minutes of gameplay and an IGN breakdown of the demo they played. So we have so much information to work with. Not only telling us how the Crossworlds mechanic actually works, but telling us about how the customization and other features are shown. Granted, it's an early version of the game, so we're still probably missing some things, but what we have now is more than enough to work with. So let me break down the information we actually have, talk shop about how the game looks and what I think about it as a kart racing expert, and briefly discuss what else we can expect from the game and how it's going to perform. So first of all, the title mechanic, Crossworlds. What could that possibly mean? Well, in the initial trailer we saw a bit of this, where occasionally 2 rings would pop up and then someone would choose one and they would all go there and change their track. We didn't get a great explanation in the trailer because that's not what that's for, but the IGN review that played the demo told us more about how this mechanic works, which was well needed because again, from the trailer I thought that this was a set change. Like, oh, you picked the Techno Arena? Well then in lap 2 you get sent to Dinosaur Jungle, but that's not how this works actually. The explanation ran as followed. Lap 1 is the normal course as it was selected. At the beginning of lap 2, whoever's in first place gets a choice between 2 warp rings, and then the second lap takes place within that warp ring, everyone following suit. Then in lap 3, you return back to the initial course, but it's been changed somewhat. The example given in the IGN video was that Metal Harbor had the rocket launch between lap 1 and 3. And that's the basic breakdown, but like what is actually going on here? Well, let's talk about the rings themselves. According to the IGN description and the gameplay footage we've received, the rings themselves are a randomized set of 1-lap courses. Currently, it is unclear if they're their own set of 1-lap tracks or if it's 1 lap from any of the other tracks in the game, mainly because we just don't know the track list yet. My money is on the guess that it's 1 lap from any other course though, because the idea that there's just another set of 1-lap courses is insane. But if it is 1 lap out of any other track, technically, this would make their track list exponential if you count each combination as its own track, which it's hard to tell if you should or not. Regardless, the rings themselves, like I mentioned, appear in front of first place at the beginning of lap 2, and first place gets to pick which of the 2 randomized rings the rest of the race is going to enter, and once they pick it, everybody else has to use the same ring. Not only do these rings present a randomly selected course, but they can have additional modifiers. From the ones we've seen, there's a chance that random boost pads will appear throughout lap 2, and like we see in the trailer, there's even a chance that the ring itself is just a random track, even the person who picks it doesn't know. I think this is such an interesting choice for gameplay for a number of reasons. One, like I mentioned, in a way, this makes the track list exponentially expand. No 2 races will ever be the same. Sure, you can practice the main courses, but you never know what lap you're going to be thrown into in the middle of a race. Not only that, but it's a way to reward first place without being too broken. In a lot of kart racing games, because they're more casually oriented, being in first place is kind of a punishment. You get worse items, and many items are targeted directly at you, which makes sense. Like I mentioned, it's a party game before anything else, so they want to balance out competition to make it more fun for everybody involved. But this is one of the first times I've seen a game reward first place in a way that's not too broken. Obviously, you wouldn't want first place getting invincibility stars and the like because that wouldn't be fair. They're already up there and you're going to make the gap insurmountable. And you also wouldn't want first place to just be able to pick a specific track, because then whoever is in first place could just pick their favorite or the one they're best at and give themselves a massive advantage on top of what they already have. With this choice that they've gone with, a random choice between 2 options, it gives first place that slight reward without tipping the scales too far in their favor. After all, yes, first place gets to dictate how the rest of the race is going to go, but they don't have that much of an option. It's one of 2, and it's very possible that neither of them are a preferred choice. But as cool as this feature is, I'm hesitant to see how it's going to work in practice, because looking at it, it does seem a little clunky. Like, is there just this flat road where you're autopiloted while you select your course, or do you just lean one way? It's another thing you'll have to focus on. Kart racers tend to excel when there's as little distractions as possible, that way you can focus on the racing. So if it's a tight race and you're only a car or 2 ahead of second place, is taking the time to decide the ring going to be a disadvantage? Frankly, I'm not sure, and a big part of that is I haven't played it. I hope that it's seamless, but regardless, the Crossworlds feature seems really interesting, and it's something I've never seen before in a kart racer. So with that amazing news out of the way, let's talk about some of the other things and the most basic feature that I've already skipped, the racing itself. Sonic Racing Crossworlds is going to again lean on the transformed nature the Sonic series has done a lot, where you can be either on the roads, in a jet, or in the water, all of them offering slightly different control schemes. I made it known in my kart racing ranked video that I'm not a huge fan of this kind of design gimmick, mainly because I often don't find it a compelling change to the gameplay, especially in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where the gliding sections are pretty much just slow cannon shots and the underwater sections are just kind of driving but worse. I will say Sonic Racing Transformed tends to get this better, where it's still not a super compelling change in style, but the sections are long enough and different enough that they do seem more warranted, especially the jet areas. The boat, I can take it or leave it because it is, again, kind of just driving but worse, but the jet does offer compelling gameplay that is different than just gliding slowly. Regardless, I do think this inclusion is generally for the best with a gimmick like Crossworlds. It gives them a lot more options on what kind of worlds we're going to be crossing into. This is normally where I would put the gameplay critiques in, but obviously I haven't played it, so I don't know. It looks like it controls really snappy, but I'm not going to be able to know that until I feel it for myself. One can only hope that it's similar to previous Sonic games which had generally tight controls. Moving on to customization, this more so just comes from information we got out of the IGN video, but according to them, kart customization is here in a big way, able to change the look of your car, color, and decals to make it feel more closely to you. Not to mention, the characters themselves have individual stats which you can pair with the cars. Now, this gives a very interesting possibility. In some previous Sonic Racing games, the character was ascribed to their car was about their character, but it seems like this is taking the more modern approach where instead the character and car can be swapped. This isn't huge news, but it is really interesting for one thing. In the trailer and the cover, we see Jet the Hawk on an extreme gear, the boards from Sonic Riders, a game that, while it has its problems, is one of my nostalgia faves. And we don't have any confirmation outside of Jet the Hawk existing, but it seems like if you can customize your car and cars aren't locked to characters, to me that makes it seem like we might be able to put anyone on an extreme gear, which sure, we can relive our Sonic Riders heyday by putting Sonic on one, but I just think of the funniest combinations with extreme gear. Like, these are relatively small hoverboard type cars. Imagine putting Omega on one of these. I can't wait to see it, and if you can, I'm gonna do it every time, because that's just funny. And again, I just want to relive Sonic Riders. Part of me wants to do a Sonic Riders stream soon, just because I miss Sonic Riders, after seeing extreme gear and Jet the Hawk in the year of our Lord 2025. That's crazy. And moving on to the prediction side of things, we don't have a lot to speculate on besides just, oh, it's a Sonic racing game, so we'll probably see this. I think I saw that Sage from Sonic Frontiers is going to be a playable character, which is very funny. Honestly, put the little baby on an extreme gear. I think that'll be hilarious, just the baby going skateboarding. But I think the really compelling and interesting question is which Frontiers location will we get a course about? I think the safest bet is Kronos Island, the first area in the game. After all, it's the first area in the game. It's the one most people know, it's what was on most of the branding to avoid spoilers, and it is a well-suited area for a track. But I think the most interesting track would be on Chaos Island. I mean, it just seems like a fun place to put a race course in. But as excited as I am for this game, I'm worried that it's not going to perform well. And this is the scary side of the prediction. Unfortunately, the hardest obstacle for Sonic Racing Crossworlds to overcome is going to be timing. It's probably coming out this year. You know what else is coming out this year? The new Mario Kart on Switch 2. No matter how amazing Crossworlds is, or no matter how fun and inviting and beginner-friendly it could be, the new Mario Kart will massively outsell it. And that's just a fact. It's Mario Kart. It's the thing people know more than anything. Not to mention that, but because it's going to sell so well, a lot of people, especially a lot of parents who buy games for their kids, are going to say, well, we already have Mario Kart, why would I need Sonic Racing? The better Mario Kart does, inevitably will mean the worse Sonic Racing does. But I am hopeful, especially if Sonic Racing Crossworlds can come out earlier than Mario Kart, or even on the Switch 1, which I doubt the new Mario Kart is going to do. Nintendo knows that Mario Kart is a console seller, so if it's not exclusive to the Switch 2, it's going to be a fumble. Meanwhile, Sonic Racing is going to need all the help it can get, and since Switch 1 games are backwards compatible with Switch 2, then all they have to do is make Sonic Racing Crossworlds for the Switch 1 and it'll be playable on both. So I think their best hope for success is to release the game before Mario Kart, and frankly, before the Switch 2 comes out. It'll give fans something to chew on while they're waiting, and they can play it on their brand new console. And frankly, that's all I can really think to talk about this game until we get to play it. Like I mentioned, I might do a Sonic Riders stream some point soon, because now I just really miss that game and I want to play it again, and that'll give me an excuse. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on the game. Are you a car racing fan excited for it? A Sonic fan happy that you're continuing to eat well over this past year? Or are you completely new to this and you're only watching it because I'm talking about it? Shout out to the real ones. Regardless, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, if you missed last week's video, I continued my series about making my very own Pokemon region, and it was all about the starters of the region. You can find that right here. Until next time, as always, you've been watching Rye Toost. Of all the YouTube channels, it's the second one. Stay toasty, slices.